What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to my review of the iPhone 15 Pro. In this video, we are going to take a close look both inside and out to find out if this new phone is really worth it for all that money or if it is all marketing and you don't really need it. As always, let's begin by talking a little bit about the exterior design, which, as you can see at a first glance, is pretty similar to the previous model, to the iPhone 14 Pro. But, well, when you take a closer look, you realize that there's actually some important differences. Like, for example, that the iPhone 15 Pro is made out of titanium, and that therefore is going to be more resistant and noticeably lighter. You realize that it has a new action button that allows you to open pretty much any app or toggle you want. And you realize that it is actually a little bit more comfortable to hold because it has slightly more rounded side edges. It's a subtle difference for sure, but it is noticeable. Truth is that, well, even though I like all of these upgrades, I love the action button, I love that it's a little bit lighter, and I love that it's more comfortable to hold, I can't help it but to feel a little bit disappointed that the side edges are now matte. They have a matte finish now, and even though I guess it's a personal preference, some people like it better than the previous glossy finish, I just feel like it feels less premium. I mean, the normal iPhone 15s and 14s and 13s had the matte finish, and the Pro phones had a glossy finish, and they felt more luxurious, I guess, and now they don't. So I don't know. I guess it's just me. Maybe it's me, and you don't really care, or you prefer it this way, but I felt like I wanted to tell you. But anyways, let's move on. It's time to talk about the interior components on the iPhone 15 Pro. More specifically, it's time to talk about the processor, which in this case is the new A17 Pro chip combined with 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is kind of a big deal for an iPhone. It is a lot of RAM, and well, of course, being a new flagship iPhone, every app is going to load up instantaneously. It's going to feel amazing, and your experience using the phone is going to be impeccable, which of course translates to your gaming experience. Every game is going to play amazing also at maximum settings and without any performance issues. In fact, it is so powerful that Apple has decided to launch console games for it. Like proper console games, like Resident Evil and other AAA games like Assassin's Creed, and they work great, at least considering that this is just a mobile phone. But my friends, it doesn't stop there because, as you've probably heard, the new iPhone 15s have USB-C. Yes, it happened. Apple decided to include USB-C on the iPhone. Well, they didn't decide to do it. The EU forced them to do it, but it happened anyways, and I'm happy because now you can connect your iPhone to any display, add a controller to the equation, and start playing like you normally would without having to have your console at home or even have a console at all. This is a revolution, my friends. Think about it. Like, maybe now games play barely like they would on a PS4, but imagine on the iPhone 18. You're going to have like a console in terms of power, so you're going to be able to play the new GTA 6. You're going to be able to play all the console and PC games that exist, not only on your phone, but on your desktop display, on your TV, with a controller, with maybe mouse and keyboard in the future. This is very exciting. Oh, and by the way, speaking of exciting, I have to tell you that the iPhone 15 Pro right now has an amazing price on Amazon. I left a link in the description, and I heavily recommend that at the end of the video, you go check it out because, I mean, as many of you know, this phone is expensive, so any discount at all is very appreciated. So yeah, at the end of the video, remember to click the link. But anyways, let's move on. Let's talk about the battery, which has honestly given me a very pleasant surprise because both in my studio test doing a technical rundown and in my real life experience actually using the phone, results have been better than I expected. As always, the only issue is that it doesn't have a very fast charging, capped at only 20 watts. But in every other way, both in terms of autonomy and functionality, it is worth the steep price it has. And it's not even meant to have a good battery life. I mean, it's the small version of the Pro phone. And as many of you know, the Pro phone has always had everything that it could possibly have, all the new flagship top tier features. And well, that's always come at a cost of battery life. So retaining a decent battery life with all of the new features on the small version is is great. Very briefly, I have to mention my disappointment when it comes to the display on this phone because it has the same specs we got last year, besides some slightly thinner bezels all around that make it look a little bit more futuristic. I mean, I didn't really need that big of an upgrade though, because last year's model was already more than enough, but you know, I'm a geek and I feel the need to complain about these things.
And finally, it is time to talk about the most important component on the iPhone 15 Pro. Well, components, which are all of the cameras we have on the back. And that, as you can see, I'm using to record this video right now. In this case, we have three sensors. We have a main 48 megapixel sensor, we have a 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor, and then we have a 3x zoom telephoto sensor. And yes, you've heard me right. It's not a 5x telephoto like on the 15 Pro Max. We get the mere 3x we got on last year's model and on the previous year's model. I've seen a lot of people complain about this because technically, you know, this is a new phone and it's the Pro phone, so it should have as many Pro features as the Pro Max version. But in my opinion, and you'll see why later, having a 3x instead of a 5x doesn't necessarily mean it's worse. It is just different, and for some people it could even be better to have a lesser zoom range.
In terms of the main sensor, as I said, it has 48 megapixels and it is very well done. It's a slight upgrade over the previous 48 megapixel sensor on the iPhone 14 Pro, and it seems like Apple really trusts this sensor because they're processing their images less and less and less. Like, this look pretty much like they would on a DSLR camera. There's very little processing, at least for a phone, which means, as I said, that the camera is good enough to not have to add all that artificial processing. And there's a lot of bokeh. I mean, if you get close to an object, because the sensor is so big and the optics are so good, you get very decent bokeh, insane bokeh for a phone. In terms of the ultra-wide sensor, well, it is a little bit mediocre, disappointing for what is a $1,300 phone. If we compare it to the latest Galaxy phones, it's a little bit under what we get in those phones. It just lacks a little bit of detail, a little bit of just, I don't know, quality, which doesn't mean it's bad. It's a very good camera. Remember, this is a flagship phone, but yeah, if you really use this camera or really need this camera, you should know that it is not the best one you can get in the world. And when it comes to the zoom sensor, as I said, it's a 3x telephoto, not a 5x, which is not necessarily something bad because sometimes you don't need that big of a close-up, that big of a zoomed in image. So it's better to have a 3x. And some other times, the opposite happens. You need more zoom, so the 5x comes in handy. I feel like it's just a different camera, not a worse or better camera. In terms of the quality, I think it's pretty much identical to last year's, which means very good. It is a big sensor with premium optics, so you're gonna get that natural bokeh on the images, a ton of detail. As always, I need to emphasize that these three cameras are different cameras. A lot of people think that the only difference is the zoom range. One is 3x, one is 1x, one is 0.5, but that's not the only difference. Each one has its own sensor, its own optics, and the quality of the photo, the detail, the bokeh is different on each one. Moving on, the most impressive camera feature on the iPhone 15 Pro has to be that it can shoot directly into an external drive and that it can do so in ProRes at 4K 10-bit using a log profile, which you probably don't know what any of these things are or mean, but all you need to know is that those are the settings or presets that they sometimes use to film Hollywood level movies or Hollywood movies point blank. So it is insane that you can have access to those features or those profiles on a phone, on a little phone that fits in your pocket and that pretty much anybody could just go buy right now. So yeah, if you're a normal person like me, this is not going to be a big deal because you're never going to use those professional settings. But for people who do professional photo, professional video, this is game changing because now they can mix the footage from their iPhone to the footage from their professional cameras. And so they can now use this as part of their equipment to film TV shows or movies. And that's actually pretty insane. So conclusion, is the iPhone 15 Pro worth it? Well, it depends. If you are, as I said now, just a couple seconds ago, in the photo or video field, yes, even if you have an iPhone 14 Pro, because now you can use this very professional settings, I think just because of that, it is worth it. If you have an old phone like an iPhone 11 or 12, also I think it is worth it to make the upgrade and buy this one. You're gonna have a way better processor, way better camera, a lot more features. But for everyone else that maybe have more recent phones like a 13 Pro or 14 Pro, I don't think you're going to need it. I mean, you can buy it and it's going to be better and it's going to be faster, but I don't think it's that big a difference to justify, as I said, $1,100, $1,200, $1,300. Remember, as I said earlier, that you have the iPhone 15 Pro at an amazing price on Amazon. You have a link in the description. Please check it out because it is very expensive and any discount is amazing. So yeah, if you're interested, remember, now that the video is about to end, to click the link.